Well, hello there. Today I want to talk about these new to me shades from Clionadh Cosmetics. These shades came out last year, but they are very new to my collection, and I wanted to swatch them for those who may be looking for swatches right now, since there's a sale going on, I think. And if not, just to have these as a resource for those who are looking for them. So let's just get into the swatches. Okay, so I'm going to start with Incandescence. It's described as having a translucent white base that shifts bright red, orange, yellow, and lime. The texture in this one is very smooth and shifty. You can see there's that bright red going to the yellow and ending up in a lime. I would call this like a peach leaning shade most of all. You can see the base is kind of gray, but as I turn it down, it looks kind of like a lavender, like a very soft lavender. And you can see as I bring it up, it looks more teal leaning, like a grayish teal. So it's very interesting how skin tone and lighting plays into these. Next, it's one of my favorites. It's Exothermic. This is described as a dimensional shadow with a tan base with medium-sized particles that shift pink, peach, and chartreuse, with hints of aqua glitter. The texture in this one is a little chunkier than the others, and with good reason because that sparkle is way larger than what Clionadh usually does. This, you can see here, the shift is going to be that pink to that peach, ending up in a yellow at the end. But all throughout you can see those tiny hints of aqua shining through. It's really beautiful and impactful. And what makes it so, it's that base. It's a tan base, not a dark one, and you can see how it makes the contrast even that more obvious. So if you're into the sparkle and the impact of a shade and don't mind a bigger particle size, this is very much for you. Next, let's talk about Entropy, which is described as a multidimensional shadow with pale gray base with medium large size particles that shift cool pink, peach, yellow, with hints of green and silver sparkle. I would describe this as a cool pink that goes warmer the more you hit the harsh angle. You can see it goes to cool pink to a more warm pink and ends up in that yellow. Those are the most obvious shifts, but you can see it has a lot of that tiny sparkle shining through it, and the base does have that hint of green, but I would call it a tan base more than anything. It creates a beautiful contrast with the pinks, and you can see that sparkle really makes this even more impactful than it already would be. Next, it's Amalgam, described as a multidimensional shadow with a purple-brown base with medium large sized particles that shift minty green, silver blue, and lavender, with hints of red and silver sparkle. You can see on the hand swatch, the more impactful part of this shade is going to be that mint shift, followed by the blue and the lavender. But the mint is so overpowering that it's not letting that pink shine through. You can see hints of it where the light is not hitting that hard, but the first shift is the one that's overpowering this shade. You can see the base, it has that tan quality that these have been having, but it's a little warmer, so it creates yet another contrast of warm versus the cool shift. But yeah, as I've said, I don't notice the pink sparkle that easily, but it's a very beautiful shade regardless. It's impactful, reflective, and of course shifty. Now up next, this is Solarium, which is described as a yellow base with small particle shimmer that shifts bright green, icy blue, and indigo. The texture on this one is very smooth, and you can see when it's swatched, it turns a little more translucent than it was on the finger. So if you want to make the base really show up, you will have to build it up a little more. But also, to me, it's better when the base is not that opaque because it makes the shade more versatile. You can mix it with other things and make the base not that obvious. You can see here the yellow is noticeable but not overpowering. On my skin it's not that obvious, but I could bet that on a paler skin it's going to be more noticeable, and on a darker skin it's going to be almost like an iridescent. Now moving on to Archway, which is described as a smoky plum base with small medium particles that shift peach and pale yellow. This is their shadow version of their nail lacquer Dark and Stormy, which is already so good, so this was a very exciting release. You can see it's a very smooth shade and it shifts from that peach to that more yellowy gold. And the base of this really is what makes this stand out among the others, because from the ones I picked up, this one has the darkest base, so it creates the biggest contrast. And it looks very beautiful and dimensional on the eye. So yeah, smooth and very shifty. Now this is Ascension, which is described as a warm purple base with a bright gold lime and aqua shift. This shade is intermixed with medium-large multicolored glitter sparkles. It does not mention what those multicolored sparkles are, but on the hand swatch, it's honestly kind of hard to tell. I would say this is mainly the shift that you are told from the start, from gold to aqua to blue. The base in this one, it's like a warm version of plum. It's dark, but it's not as dark as the past one, and yet it manages to bring out more of that gold into this shade. It's very beautiful and it reminds me like a mature version of Royalty, very shifty and pretty. But now let's continue with Synthesis, which is described as a multidimensional shadow with green-gray base and medium large size particles that shift copper, yellow, and green, with hints of silver and aqua sparkle. This one is sitting between being smooth and chunkier than the others, and you can see when it's out of focus it's very obvious that it has multicolored sparkle, but the shift is also quite straightforward. And in my opinion, these colors are muted enough and contrasting enough that they transform this into a very interesting neutral. The base in this one is darker than just a tan, but it's also not a dark base, so it creates a lot of contrast. And as I was saying, this is not a green, it's not a peach, and it has so much going on that I couldn't pin it to one color. It's very interesting. And now let's continue with Dais, which is described as a chartreuse base large particle glitter that shifts peach, lime, and aqua. And yeah, with that description, I'm just noticing that the base is the sparkle itself, because as you can see, it kind of skips because of that. When the light is not hitting, it's not that obvious that it's a darker base. And yeah, the shifts you can see are orange to a gold to an aqua. Here you can see what I was saying, that base is kind of like in the particles rather than something extra. This is the chunkiest of the ones there, and I'm not talking about impact but rather texture. It's more muted than what the pen suggests. This is Aloy, described as a multidimensional shadow with a soft top base intermixed with green, silver, and red medium large size particles, and a subtle aqua shift. I would describe this one as a soft metallic. You can see the base creates a contrast that is not that obvious, and the shifts are also soft. They're not that colorful. So yeah, this is one of those interesting neutrals, I would say. The main color is going to be that pale gold that you see there. And the base, it's like a tan base, but also a soft one that has a bit of coolness to it. It's not the shiftiest, it's not the most impactful, but it's interesting if you're into green golds. Okay, now let's talk about Electron, which is described as a multidimensional shadow with a gray base with medium large size particles that shift pewter, lime, and aqua, with hints of pale lilac glitter. This is also one of the ones that I like the most, because it's like the past one, but I think that darker base makes this look more metallic, you know, shiftier. You can see it has more dimension, and I think it's that darker base. It just makes the shade seem like it's more metallic than it already is. And also, the particles themselves are more reflective, I think. The texture is also a bit chunkier than the past one. So yeah, I think this one is more impactful. And finally, let's end it with Masonry. This is described as a medium top gray base with small particles that shift platinum, lime, and aqua, with a touch of warmth. Out of all of these shades, this is the smoothest one. You can see it does have a little bit of form in there, and I don't know what is bringing it exactly. The base looks like a dark and desaturated version of taupe. If you saw the past 3 shades, you may notice they're a little bit alike, so I'm going to swatch all of the shades together with those 3 on the same side just so you can notice the differences. Starting with the first shade, this is Incandescence. Next, it's Exothermic, one of my favorites from this collection. Next, Entropy, another good one. You can see those two are very chunky and I like that. Next up, this is Amalgam. You can see just how pretty they are together. Now this is Solarium, one of the smoother ones, I would say. And another smooth one. This is Archway. Now Ascension. So pretty. Next it's Synthesis, the first of those green shades. You can appreciate the colorful sparkles here. Next, this is Masonry. This is Electron, in my opinion, one of the most shiny. Now, this is Aloy. You can see a little bit of that red peeking through. And last but not least, this is Dais. So you can see here, the last 5 shades are greens, but to me they're different enough where I wouldn't say that I've duped myself. And when it comes to the others, they are indeed very different from one another. I wouldn't say they remind me of each other. So personally, I'm very happy with the shades that I picked. Even though some are a little bit similar, to me they are different enough and that's what matters. But if you think they are too similar, then they are. I'm just doing this to help anyone who was curious about this. And that'll be it for me for now. Thank you for watching and have a lovely day.